Hello, everybody. This is Margaret Martens, Executive Director of the Water Systems Council, and thank you for joining us for another Water Systems Council Town Hall. We're joined today by Wind Evans with Flexcon Industries, Dan Story with Grundfos, Pat O'Hanlon with Blake Equipment, Ryan Arnett with Austin Pump and Supply, and Jeff Smith with Smith Well Drilling, and also joined with our Government Affairs Director, Jeff Moore. And we're just going to go right into it with some questions. So, gentlemen, we talked last on May 7th. I'm wondering how business has been since then. Dan, you want to kick that off?
Sure. Yeah. So surprisingly, business has been pretty solid. It's been choppy. It's kind of been all over the place. You know, some areas are up, some areas are down. Some products are up and some are down, but it's been pretty good. When we last talked in early May, we had come off of a March where we had a big March because of a lot of buyout from customers who were guarding themselves against a possible supply disruption because of COVID. And so April was a little bit soft, and May started a little bit soft, but really took off from there. Solid for us, and then June's just has grown from there. So June's been very strong. So it's been a wild ride, and it's like I said, it's all over the place. Definitely for us, residential is leading the way. We're seeing strong demand in residential products. I think if you look at the underlying factors, obviously weather has been a positive contributor to us this year versus last year. It's helped us out. I also think people are home. People are home. They're washing hands, they're irrigating, they're using water, they're working on projects around the house. So that's helped to drive the business. So it's been okay. If you look at our Grundfos as a whole, groundwater has been one of the better performers. The rest of our business has been okay in the U.S. We have been impacted more especially on the industrial side and then on the commercial side. But all in all, not so bad. And then globally for Grundfos, we've seen it's kind of like what I talked about. It's all over the place. You've got some countries. Luckily, U.S. is in that category that have done okay, not bad at all. Other countries that are really struggling. And so in all, it's not bad. It's not anywhere near the worst case scenario that we were preparing for.
Good to hear. Wind, what about you and Flexcon?
Sure. Well, overall, our business has been steady. We're at acceptable levels, not exactly where we want to be, but roughly we're where we were last year. If you look at it across the country, the Northeast has probably been our slowest because it basically shut down, in March. And we're starting to see more and more states opening up. Other parts of the country, our business has been really pretty solid. I think Texas, Ryan, you can probably attest to that when the oil patch, pretty much shut down when you had negative barrel prices for oil. But it looks like that's starting to come back now too. So, but overall, we're pretty content with where we are considering the extraordinary times.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Ryan, well, that takes us right into you since you are in Texas.
You know what? Business is great, surprisingly good. I continue to be conservative in all my forecasts, expected stuff to creep back, and we are definitely up and have been throughout the year. And, we've seen a slowdown in commercial, industrial, definitely in the oil patch, but we've made gains in so many other channels that we've offset those losses. So if that does start to come back, the oil field, we're going to be in a really good position.
Okay, that's good to hear. And Pat, how are things in the Northeast?
Yeah, so things right now have really turned on from probably the last 2 weeks of May. The first 2 weeks of May were tough. They were extremely slow. But when it turned back on, it's truthfully, we tried to get in front of it with inventory. We let those levels get down a little bit, but honestly, we've been having a difficult time trying to keep up with our inventory to supply contractors, which I'm sure Jeff will attest. flying right now. It's really been very, very good.
Okay. Okay, so Jeff is a contractor in New York. I'm sure you have a very interesting story for us. So
Yeah, it's
how is business?
never slowed down. It's gotten busier since May. We've got a drought going on up here that's impacting a lot of wells. Our biggest problem right now is we just can't get to you. As we spoke last time, we had a big backlog of work to do. The boys were out drilling. They went out the second, third week of May trying to drill that backlog. But right now we're pushed back on any new drill into late August, September.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And again, in New York with licensing and certification, all my contractor partners are complaining the same thing. There's no qualified help. You just can't grab a kid off a truck or off the street and put him in a truck. He's got to have 2 years experience. So we're going as hard as we were back in before the '08 crash. I do see our municipal market slow. A lot of those projects were put on hold because the state closed down. Commercial business, we've had some, as Pat can probably attest to, but our main driver is residential, and it's a mix of existing, new construction, and with our close proximity to New York City, there is talk of a great demand even out, a year, 2 years out, because every place we go to, if they're from New York City, I'll ask the question, when are you going back? And a lot of these people are saying, hey, we found a house to rent long term. We're looking for property. We're looking to buy a house up here. And so after every major event that has happened in New York City, whether it be a stock market collapse of '08 or 2001, we see a migration of people out of New York City up through the Hudson Valley. So well, I'm sure we'll be busy for the next year and a half, 2 years. It'll slow down, obviously, in the winter.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's good news to hear from everybody. As we all know, our industry was deemed essential from day one. And so I think that's being reflected in what you were speaking of. So what we wanted to talk about mostly today was about the fact that a lot of the country is now in the process of what they're calling reopening or the new normal. So what I was wondering is how you're planning your new normal and the reopening of your business and the facilities. So Dan?
Sure. So currently, we really haven't changed much since we talked in early May. We're currently, we've got all non-essential employees still working remote. So we were able to move our customer service centers to working from home pretty seamlessly. We were fortunate. We had already had provisions in place in case that there was a weather emergency or what have you. And so we were able to make that transition pretty easily. We haven't lost any productivity, and I'd say that the morale has been pretty good throughout. So we're happy to see that. Manufacturing has been okay. We've had our struggles here and there. We're spending a lot of money on air freight to protect our customers, but all in all, it hasn't been too bad. And I think for me, the biggest part that I worry about is on the sales side, not being face to face with our customers, and that's a big concern of ours. And so as things are opening up, we're really eager to get out there and get out with our customers, but we also want to take a really conservative stance and just do whatever we can to keep our employees and partners safe and just do our part to keep this thing in check. So as we're moving forward, we do have we call it a de-escalation program process in place, and we've got the everything, all the guidelines and steps for the next one, ready to go in place. And so what that means for our offices is we've got new seating arrangements that can allow for social distancing at different occupancy levels. Of course, guidelines for PPE and sanitizing workstations and that sort of thing. And then on the sales side, the next step will mean going out, making and traveling without any public transportation, so no airplanes. So it'll be day trips, stuff you can drive to. We'll have it set up on a state-by-state basis because, as we know, the situation is much different. We're depending on where you're at in the country. So based on guidelines from CDC and others, we'll we'll have these states designated as, free to travel, and these states you'll need to have, permission to travel to, and these states will still be off. That's how we plan on approaching the next steps.
Okay, all righty. And Wynn, how are things working out at FlexCon with reopening?
Similarly to what Dan said, we are complying with state and federal regulations. Obviously, the key concern for us is the health and well-being of our associates. The thing that we've learned is that our workforce is pretty extraordinary. A lot of the office positions, they've been able to work remotely, and we really haven't missed a beat on that. The guys working out in the plant, the work cells are basically staged so that we can really enjoy social distancing out there on the plant floor.
Mm-hmm.
We do things like we used to have shift changes that were overlapping. We discontinued that, so there's a little bit of time in between each shift. But we've been very fortunate. Business has been better than what we would expect during these extraordinary times. So we're gonna wait and see how things move forward. I think I mentioned earlier that Massachusetts is going to start opening up. They're going to be allowing in restaurant dining, so that kind of opens the door for more closer contact opening for the state. I don't think it's going to change in terms of us having visitations to the plant. The local town has basically said that we can't have outside visitors in our facility right now, so we're probably not going to be able to do that for quite some time. Our sales force is working remotely. They have in the past anyway, and as they feel comfortable, we're allowing them to travel. So that's the new normal for us moving forward. So I think the state and federal regulations are really going to dictate how we're going to operate moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ryan, how are things in Texas as far as, I know that when we talked last, you, I think, said that you hadn't really, there wasn't a whole lot of changes in the work down there?
We were never forced to close any of our facilities. Really just had to enforce whatever regional mandate was in place as far as access to the facilities.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is we're under stricter requirements as of this week than we have been at any time during this whole process. As restaurants opened up and things loosened up, cases have begun to rise again.
Mm-hmm.
And they've started enforcing new requirements as far as masks and other safety procedures and policies. Look, as far as the new normal, I don't think that we're in a spot yet where we can declare what it is. We're kind of working in a business mode of constant chaos and constant changes. And we try to provide our customers with some form of stability. Scheduled deliveries, they know what product they're getting. We make sure that we have it, and we're one less thing that they have to worry about.
Okay. All right. And Pat?
Yeah, similar to others on the call, we're following the guidelines that you have to by local governments. And again, in the Northeast, it's been fairly stringent. There's certain things you have to do. We're going to continue to have folks that can continue to work remotely. We're going to continue to do that. As far as outside sales staff, we're going to start a measured approach. We've allowed our outside sales staff in emergency or troubleshooting situations in the past. We're going to start to, in July, allow them to get out, but not on a full basis. It will be a customer's needs basis is where we're going to be with that. And drivers, that's been pretty much the same. Most of our inside staff has been the same. And the one thing that we're really trying to watch is we found in some of our locations people weren't following the protocols. And truthfully, as an organization, one, for their safety, that's got to happen. And truthfully, as an organization, you've got to be careful liability long term. So
Sure.
we just put back out to all our branches to ensure that you're following these procedures, because, you know, in days of litigation, you don't know. So we're re-emphasizing right now that our locations are following the protocols that we set in place.
Okay. Okay, good. Jeff, I know you said you had put in strict protocols as far as having different teams designated on your rigs and not having people work, you know, cross each other's paths and that type of thing. Are you continuing with that practice? And
As best we can, being on the front line. When we go to houses, again, we discuss prior to arrival that we've got, you know, mask, gloves, eye protection. We're finding the majority of the people up in my county, they say, don't worry about it. Well, you know, we must maintain social distancing, so please stay upstairs or whatever. But we work in a lot of homes from New York City, and these people are definitely scared to death.
mm-hmm.
I was at a house yesterday with 6 people. I said, "Where's your kids?" "Oh, I put them in their rooms." You know, they closed their doors, and we had masks and so on. Here, things never really changed because being essential, we had to be out there. And yeah, we keep our few guys we got. I work with one other guy. My nephew works with his other guy. No, our one employee, his wife was tested. She works for the government. She came back negative. We assume he's negative, or we're all asymptomatic. But we've got to be out there every day. And my biggest worry is that if one of us comes down, it's going to affect, we're going to shut down. We're in quarantine for 14 days. And that would be a dramatic hit to not only the finances, but to our customer base. You know, we hate to lose our customers. Again, my office staff here, Carrie and my daughter work here. They are constantly cleaning the office, doorknobs, everything. We clean our trucks daily, and we're very respectful of customers' wishes of how they want us to get in their house and do what we have to do. A lot of billing with credit cards. You know, we call the office, they take care of the billing, so there's no exchange of checks or paper money. So the new normal, it's going to be interesting to see. I watch, and I'm worried about Florida, Texas, these spikes. Is this going to come back to New York and set us back? I hope not. And people are very, I think, pent up and frustrated. You know, the general public up here, they haven't been able to go out and go to restaurants. I think, Pat, are we in phase 3? Did that start Wednesday?
Started Wednesday.
Yep. You know, so restaurants, I believe, are at half capacity, allowing inside seating, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully this will get some type of vaccine and life will get better and go back to how it used to be, but that's going to be a ways off, I understand.
Okay. All righty. Well, I think some of you touched on this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, is what's the expectation and protocol for visiting customers? Now, Dan, I know that you touched on that a minute ago, as far as you saying you're going to look by state and follow the guidelines for that. Are you mostly just doing video chats with your customers at this point? How's that?
Yeah, that's currently the biggest protocol is phone calls, video chats, webinars, doing everything we can to stay engaged with customers and making sure they're up to speed on our products and services. We have had a couple of visits where we're deemed business critical and have made some trips, but those have to get approval from management. In terms of proceed, we do have set protocols set for when we do make those visits, and of course that'll go be in play when we open back up. Really focused on making sure we talk to the customer beforehand, making sure that they're accepting visitors, and making sure if they've got any guidelines on site that we need to follow when we're there, that we're doing that. We're also making sure that everything's logged in CRM. So if somebody does get infected, we can trace it back and notify anybody that person was in contact with. And then, of course, we've issued everybody a PPE kit with all the goodies, and need to make sure we use that. We keep social distancing, and at least in the first phase, it'll be in groups of 10 or less for step number 1. And then, of course, we're working on the next steps and as we de-escalate.
Okay, great. When, how is FlexCon visiting with customers?
Yeah, well, currently, we're not allowing visitors to the plant, which is kind of a shame because one of the more fun things that we do in terms of marketing our company is actually having factory tours. And it's very difficult. Massachusetts, they're just opening dining on Monday, but it's very difficult. The town of Randolph, where our factory is located, I think they're still restricting visitors. So we're going to have to wait and see. There's so many logistical things with coming to the plant too. You got to get people there. The hotels that we use, they're very restrictive in how they're handling customers, and then you got to shuttle everyone to the plant and back. It's very difficult to do the social distancing. So we've got a lot of customers that like to come up to the plant, but we're still assessing when if we're going to be able to do that in 2020.
Okay. Okay. Well, I know I went on a FlexCon plant tour and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So.
We enjoy having people here.
Yeah.
It's the owner of our company says, it costs just a little bit more to make it memorable. We try to make it memorable for everyone that comes to the plant. So.
Yes. Okay, Ryan. So how, I know that you've put, like you said, you have been working with customers continuously.
Our sales team, they had been restrained a bit, only doing technical calls. And now we've opened that up to sales calls and not just emergencies or new installations they needed to be on. Still, all calls are pre-scheduled. And we do our best to make sure we're following any sort of local governance. And at a different level, make sure whatever customer we're meeting with, we're meeting their requirements to keep them comfortable. That may mean meeting people at the restaurants that are open in their parking lots, or some offices are fully open and we'll go in and do sales calls with them.
Okay. Okay. And what about you, Pat?
Yeah, similar to what other folks were talking about on the call. I think what's interesting from the technical support, it's easier to understand that with a customer base. They're typically requesting that for you to come out on the technical support or troubleshooting. The hard part for sales folks is that building new business. That when we schedule, like Ryan said, it's going to be really kind of approved even with their direct manager, the sales folks, to pre-approve their schedule and not just to go out. It's going to be asking that customer what they want, what they're comfortable with, what their need is. And that becomes difficult while trying to build business. So if you want to call on a prospect, a new customer, that's where it's difficult not having that relationship. I think most of us would say if we don't know someone right now, we're probably not likely to let them into our place of business. As it is, we have no immediate plans of allowing vendors into our facilities at this point. We're looking to do it, in this type of format. So I think it's going to be very difficult for Salesforce to go out and develop new business with customer base that they don't have. I don't think they're going to be accepting of, asking. So that's going to be what we're going to cross the proverbial bridge when we get there. And it's going to be up to those customers and prospects as to, what their comfortability is with allowing us into their facilities.
Right. And Jeff, I know you touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else you want to add as far as your protocol for visiting customers?
No, just that we've had to go out because people requiring new wells want to come out and site the well or meet with them. And of course, we just maintain social distance, gloves, masks, or whatever we need to do. Most of that's outside, so we haven't had an issue with that. We're still not just allowing people into our shop to, buy without an appointment, so we know who they are. And if we do, we have a log, as we do with every job. We keep a book of where we are, who was where. Therefore, if someone does pop positive and we get a phone call, we can trace it back. So.
Oh, good. That's good. Very good. Okay. So are you planning, my next question is, are you still planning like customer events and promotions during this time, Dan?
Not much in the way of events. Pretty much everything's been canceled up to NDWA, really. and we'll
Yes.
see what happens there. There are some sales promotions going on. Of course, we're participating that way. But really, it's everything's pretty much online. We've seen our online. We've got an online technical institute, and the participation there has grown tenfold this year, which has been amazing. But yeah, not a lot in the way of customer events coming up.
Yeah, with all the trade shows being shut down, the ability to get continuing education and training is I'm sure, in high demand. Wind, what about FlexCon?
Pretty much the same thing. Most of our customers have either postponed or canceled their marketing events this spring. The open houses. I know that a lot of our customers enjoy going to them, but they've been postponed. The Jubilee this summer has been canceled.
Right.
So what our regional managers have been doing is they've been creating promotions on their own and working with distribution that way to keep things going. But aside from that, I mean, business is really good right now. So there's not. You generally don't need to do a lot to for promotions. Just execute. But we'll see moving forward as people get less wary about the quarantining and feel more confidence in going out. It'll be interesting to see in third and fourth quarter if there is a second wave, or if people have the confidence to want to hold events. We pretty much rely on our customers to make decisions if they want to do that, and we will certainly support them on that.
Okay. Ryan, are you running any promotions? And
So all of our in-person events have been canceled up to in GWA. We haven't made the determination there yet. We're looking for feedback from customers and seeing if they're comfortable attending.
yes,
As far as sales promotions, yeah, we're running extensive promotions and plan to throughout the summer. We have changed some of the requirements, made them a little more accessible, and maybe not such a high entry point to take advantage of them.
okay,
Encouraging customers to lean on our inventory and until they're comfortable with their cash flow.
okay, good. And Pat?
Again, last one on here with some of these items, and they're very similar to everybody else. I will be surprised, truthfully, if NGWA happens this year, and that's not from any involvement from me with NGWA. That's from me seeing, and I've had multiple manufacturers tell me that they're not planning on participating, and so I have a hard time believing you're going to see many folks say, I'm going to jump on a plane and travel to a large event like that. At this point, I will be very surprised if that happens. I can say we would have no plans to participate at this point, just out of the safety of our people and working with customers. So, but yeah, I think there'll be the promotions will continue to happen throughout the year that we continue to do to help keep customers engaged. Although again, as one said, customers right now they're busy enough right now. They're always open to a promo, but the reality is, guys like Jeff taking all they can do just to get out to the customers that they've got. So.
Okay. So with all these changes and everything evolving all the time, how do you communicate your transitional plans to both your workforce and to your customers? Dan?
Yeah, I mean, communications, you go through something like this is just so critical, because if people aren't hearing from you, they're gonna start assuming the worst, And so certainly been doing a lot of things to try to keep communication up internally and externally. Some of the examples are our global CEO is doing a video that he sends out to all employees every week, giving an update, and it's a lot of engagement with employees through just a simple thing like that. Here in the U.S., our U.S. sales leadership team gets together every Monday morning, and we talk about what's going on, what's changed, what's happening, what the plans are going forward. Then we send a communication out to the organization, and again, it's been amazing to see. There's a lot of people that are waiting Monday mornings to see what's new.
Right.
And then we, with partners, I've talked about all the online meetings we're doing, but we've done a couple of online partner gatherings where we get a lot of our customers together and just give them an update on what we're seeing. We've had, we've had our global CEO has been on one, our global vice president of sales and marketing has been on one, and our local president runs it. And so partners can hear directly from upper management on exactly what we're doing and what we're thinking. So those have been kind of things we've been doing.
Yes, I'm sure that's very effective. What about FlexCon? How are they communicating out your plans and everything as it's transitioning?
Yeah, from management on down, I mean, we're all very accustomed to Zoom meetings now. So we seem to have a weekly Zoom meeting to get together. And then from there, our communication efforts are really done through our regional managers directly to our distributors. They've been actively contacting them due to the lack of face-to-face contact. I think in a way this has been a really positive thing because rather than waiting to visit and see someone face to face, it's so easy to pick up the phone and weekly calls just to check in to see to get a pulse on where the market is in each of the respective areas. That's really how we've been handling it. So in a way, I think it's been a very positive thing. Some of our regionals are already going out and starting to travel again. Their areas haven't been impacted quite as much as, say, the Northeast. So it's been relatively easy for them to travel and see customers. There isn't they weren't shut down quite as much as they were up here in the Northeast.
Okay. Ryan?
Look, with the situation changing daily at some points, I'm real reluctant to communicate any changes in policies or plans that I have to contradict, maybe before they even get the first note in the mail.
Right.
Internal communications are going through the same channels we've always used. That's probably too frequent for some employees and not frequent enough for other employees. We try. Communications with customers is probably one of the biggest obstacles that we have had to face. There's no way to get them in a room and explain a promotion and at one time, so it's face to face. At this point, nobody wants another COVID email. They're just getting lost in clutter, and so we pulled back on any communication through email. Phone calls.
Okay.
That's really what's been effective.
Great. Pat, what about you?
Yeah, so we started off with a daily note, or actually message from the owner every day when the pandemic started, and really most of us in the country were, hey, what's tomorrow look like? And then it went from every day to twice a week. Now it's once a week, just to give an update of where we're at with more on an internal basis. Brian brings up a good point about when you're looking at emails, as we talk about contact, and we're all flooded with so many emails, and is that the right form? Is it a hard copy note, that could go out, and then does that get to the right person? I don't know. I think Ryan's right. It comes down to a phone call is probably sometimes the best way, or even, I hate to say it, I'm not a texter, but a text. If you're a salesperson with a customer, if you've got a relationship with a customer at any level, sometimes it becomes that and a phone call. But I do think that, like all of us, when you see an email, it's like sometimes if it's not something you're really looking to follow up on, you hit that trash button. So, it is more difficult with the customers, I think, than it is, making sure they get that message if there's a change in policy.
Okay. All right.
Really go in 5 minutes.
And Mr. Smith?
Sorry about that. It's nice being small. You guys have so many veils of bureaucracy and so many people to take care of. There's 6 of us. So I sit here in my chair. We talk every night and every morning. I talk to everybody and decide where we're going, what we have to implement. I agree with Pat. I come in and I get overwhelmed with the emails on the COVID from our insurance company, our workers' comp person. And, we just kind of got to do what we got to do. We take the best precautions that we can, and we just move on and hope that things don't revert back to what they were in March and April.
Right. Okay, well, last question for you, and then Jeff is going to update us on what's going on in DC. And that the question is, actually, what lessons can you take away from the pandemic going forward? Dan?
I think there's a bunch of them. I heard somebody say during this process that these crises don't necessarily create new trends; they just accelerate trends that were already there. And that's obviously what we're seeing with the remote meetings and online.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had a national sales meeting online, and it wasn't terrible.
Right.
It's not going to replace face to face, and never will. And it shouldn't. We shouldn't try to do that. But I do think there's certainly going to be meetings that we're gonna look at and say, instead of getting on an airplane and traveling halfway around the world, I think we can do this online.
Right.
It's I think an obvious one. Probably the biggest one for me is just it's shown what we can do when we're properly motivated and resourced, and how quickly a big company like Grundfos can move. We shifted in a couple weeks, and we were making 5,000 face masks a day and donating them to hospitals. Here in the U.S., we set up a special COVID expedite process, mainly for hospitals that were being built. We're processing booster stations in hours. Work really well, and in Europe we moved a manufacturing plant from one country to another over a weekend.
Wow.
And so it wasn't 100% productivity, but it was, it's just a really good example when we really want to do something and we're motivated and resourced properly. We really can move fast. And then finally, and Jeff hit on this earlier, I think it's going to be really interesting for us to look at this. You're hearing a lot about people moving out of big cities into more rural areas. Mm-hmm. And of course, global urbanization has been a huge megatrend globally that hasn't necessarily worked in our favor over the last several years. And I think that's going to be really interesting to watch here coming up. And obviously that could have a really positive impact to our industry.
Wow, that is a very good point. Wind?
Yeah, a couple things. It certainly is great to be in an industry that's essential.
Mm-hmm.
We're singing a much different tune than a lot of other industries. One of the things I think we've learned is that, how you can adapt to extraordinary situations. I don't know if we will ever have to face, I certainly hope we don't have to face this again, but I look at FlexCon as a company, and the flexibility of our associates and what our company has been able to do to survive this pandemic. It's pretty invigorating to me knowing that, the vitality of the people that work for our company and their flexibility and how they've been able to cope with, a really crazy situation. So those two things that, are what I take away from this moving forward.
Sure. Okay, Ryan, what about you?
Wind hit on it when he said the word flexibility. It's clear we've got to be able to continue to be flexible, not get locked into any one way of doing something. At some level, this has been an opportunity for us to try out new methods of communication and new opportunities to run different promotions where we may have had annual traditions that we just did the same thing over and over. Mm-hmm. We'll see how those work out. Every day in this industry, there's some new challenge. Every application's different. At this point, this is just another challenge that we know we're going to have to figure out a solution to.
Okay. And Pat, what are your takeaways?
Yeah, Jeff talked about it. Dan talked about it. There's definitely a change. So after 9/11, you saw how companies changed around cities. It's interesting, but that time heals all wounds also is in effect, right? Because we see these cyclical things happening. I happen to be in a small city right now, Troy, and Jeff will attest to this, that you saw the migration of people out of cities for various reasons, right? Then you started to see those downtown areas with, the different people, the Generation X wanting to be in an urban environment, and started the migration back. That was it. So it's kind of like we're seeing it again. Now there's going to be people that are looking to get out of those crowded environments for a period of time. And guess what? 10 years, 15 years from now, people have forgotten about this and they'll go back to it. So as we adapt with those changes, we see those things happen as trends. What we also do is, as we headed into this, everybody was like, hey, how bad is this going to be economically for us as a company, as an industry? We all looked at our opportunities to cut down on expenses and et cetera. And every company on here and every company can say, you know, even though it's been good, we've all looked at that. We were forced to look at opportunities for efficiencies, opportunities for expenses, and where we've done that. So business will be done different for a lot of businesses because they said, wait a second, did we really need this particular expense? Did we really need this particular event? And that's the reality. So we will not do things the same probably on any of the companies on here because of that, because we realized we didn't have to, that we can be more efficient. And so for us, we definitely found that. We found some areas to be more efficient with our processes, and areas to look at our expense, and then also areas for opportunity. So, from that, it's, we've learned a lot, as Dan said. And, and I'll also say in the next 2 to 6 months, we don't know what we are still going to encounter as we go through these likely second and third waves, and how that's going to affect us.
Right. Okay, thank you. Jeff, any takeaways?
Yeah, a couple things. Being an old guy, I'm kind of amazed with FaceTime. And so my nephew, and some of the employees, we can talk to the Grunfus people, we can talk to the Drive people, and be out in the field. Hey, it saves sending somebody out with us. The water conditioning companies, they can, sit in their office, see what we're looking at. That's pretty amazing. These meetings, becoming more efficient, not having to travel. That's some of the positive things that I take away from it. I wonder, will it ever go back in the next couple of years where I can go in a hardware store, go to get a cup of coffee without wearing a mask? But hopefully a vaccine will take care of this. And but yeah, I think there's been some positive things. We've all gotten more efficient. Pat can attest to this. We can go in, take our phone and stick it up to our bins, and Pat knows what we need. We don't even have to talk to his company. We didn't do that until this year, and now we rely on that more and more. So yeah, we have to adapt, we have to change, and there's been some good things that have come of it, other than the social distancing and the mask wearing.
Right. Well, that's all really good information, gentlemen. I'm going to turn to Mr. Moore now to have him update us on what's going on in DC and how things are for our government affairs.
Margaret, if I could just interject, I do have to go. I've got a couple no water calls, so I'm going to sign off, but thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you, Jeff. We appreciate it.
All right. See you guys. Thanks.
Good job. Good seeing you.
That's your well contractor for you.
Working.
Putting the customer first.
So, DC, there's more craziness to talk about than we have time for, but on our narrow set of issues, investment in water infrastructure, there's good news. Yesterday, the House Transportation Committee finished up their big highway bill, and they announced they're going to put this together with the water bills that we've been interested in. And it won't be the final number, but they're looking at $25 billion, a one-time, for drinking water and for helping on PFAS and groundwater issues. I mean, to put that in perspective, the federal government currently is putting about 1.5 to 2 billion into these programs. So to the extent that, we want to work with groups like USDA, work with EPA, make sure that if a small community can use cluster wells or individual wells to solve their problems, I think that's really an enormous opportunity for us. The White House Office of Management and Budget 2 days ago, they were talking about the president being interested in $1 trillion package. In the Senate, we discussed this on our last call, the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee passed unanimously a drinking water bill and a big wastewater infrastructure bill. And the drinking water bill has a great deal of focus on rural drinking water and, helping out those folks that we've highlighted as needing real help. So, Margaret, you're going to be really busy, more money than you can spend. It's unclear how this is going to play out. Obviously, the unemployment rate is a driver. Investment in infrastructure is seen as a jobs bill. Both parties would like to have a jobs bill. They'd like to have something. These are enormous numbers they're talking about. It'll probably be tied together with some package that'll include more money for states and localities, which could help, as you heard Jeff talk about, is municipal bill, or a couple of you had, the municipal work's been down because kind of things have been froze at the municipal level. This will probably help jumpstart that. There will be extensions of PPP programs, which may help folks that are, one step in the food chain removed from us and are starting, getting their businesses back up. So that's a good thing. It's one of the few things in Washington that's really happening. We're dealing with, policing issues and race issues, and that's going to be in a real focus here. But the House of Representatives will likely pass that $1.5 trillion infrastructure package before the July 4th recess.
Great.
So, I can, I'll send it out after this came out yesterday. Drinking water and wastewater protects access to safe drinking water by investing $25 billion in drinking water state revolving funds and other programs to ensure, all communities have clean drinking water. These are the broad, but there's actual legislation for all of this. And the thing that's encouraging, they're going to invest in existing programs, like here's money for a state revolving fund. Here's money for rural drinking water. They're not trying to create new things. So those numbers will likely come down once they negotiate with the Senate. Senate's much more fiscally conservative, Republican, but we may have an infusion of a lot of money to buy our products, put people to work. And, that's all good. We need it. 40 million people still on the unemployment rolls right now. So I would just echo what Jeff and Pat said, being originally from Cooperstown, New York. There have been a lot of inquiries about purchasing property and houses by the 9 million people in the New York metropolitan area.
Wow.
I have, 2 farms that I use for hunting up there. I've gotten unsolicited. They don't even have structures on them. Unsolicited, people can go and look on tax things, letters about wanting to buy my property. So that hasn't happened in upstate New York in about 100 years. So interesting.
Very interesting. Well, thank you, Jeff, for that update. And again, I want to thank all our participants for giving us a view of what's going on in the water well industry right now during these challenging times. And I also want to say happy Father's Day to all of you gentlemen. I hope you have a very nice weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.